सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरते यौपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओमित्येतदक्षरमुद्गीतमुपासीत ओमिति ह्युद्गायते तस्योपव्याख्यानम्। We proceed with the Chhandogy Upanishad, page 253. Look at the footnote number 1 on that page. Trivutkarana Prakaranam Parisamaptam. The Prakaranam, the topic dealing with Trivutkaranam, the threefold combination, Parisamaptam, is very well concluded. How the threefold combination takes place with reference to the external objects or external world, as well as it takes place with reference to the individual self. The idea is that so tena vikarah sarvopi mithya vacha ramana matra. Basically what is meant to be said is that whatever is that Brahma is the upadana karanam and vikarah sarvopi mithya. Jagat is Brahma vikarah, modification of Brahma. So also the individual upadi is also vikarah, therefore mithya vacha ramana matra. Merely initiated by speech. It has only reality as much as the word or the name, nothing more than that. Brahmaiva satyamiti nirnitam. That Jagat is mithya, Brahma alone is satyam. This is nirnitam. This is what has been ascertained so far. Tena yad vijnanat sarvam vijnatam bhavati tadev Brahma. Therefore, by knowing which everything as well becomes known, that is Brahma, because that is Sat and that is Satyam, that is the Jagat Upadana Karanam, that is one without a second, and therefore knowing Brahman, everything is as well known. Prapanchasya sarvasya brahma vikaratvat तज्ज्ञानेन तत्त्वतः ज्ञातमित्यपि उक्तं भवति. प्रपंचस्य सर्वस्य ब्रह्म विकारत्वात्. The entire prapancha, the creation being the vikara, the modification of Brahman. Therefore, tajnanena, Brahma jnanena, by the knowledge of Brahman, tatvatah jnatavyam uktam bhavati. Therefore, if you know Brahman, then essentially you have known the entire universe, you know everything. This is knowing the essential. The incidental and essential are the aspects about everything. Brahman is the essential thing, the essence of everything. Knowing that a thing is as well known. Parantu ahameva tad brahma iti jnanaveva mukti sadhakam. So it is not enough to know Brahman as a Jagat Karanam. It is important to know Brahman as one's own self. That Brahman is Satyam, Jagat is Mithya, and thereby knowing Brahman, Jagat or everything is as well known. This is fine, that's the one aspect of it. But ultimately, the loop must be complete, and therefore, that Brahman I am. Parantu ahameva tad brahma iti jnanameva mukti sadhanam. That knowledge that I am Brahman, that knowledge alone is a means of mukti or liberation. Tat padartha shodhanamapi purva granthena gatam. Mahavakya tattvamasi tat padartha shodhanam. What is the true meaning of the word tat? The vachyartha is the Jagat and Ishvara, they are the vachyartha of tat, but essentially all of that is Brahma. So tat padartha shodhanam. What is the true meaning of word tat? Means that or Ishvara. Purva granthena gatam. Srishtyaadivuktya tat padasya mukhyartha parameshvara uktaha. By saying how the whole universe, the creation, has come about from Sat or Brahma. Tadaikshata bahusyam prajayayati. Tat padasya mukhyartha parameshvara uktaha. The Jagat also, the creation also, in reality is nothing but Brahma. Mukhyartha parameshvara. So tat in the primary sense should mean parameshvara. Uktaha prapanchasya uktaha. Prapanchasya vacharamana matratvat. Because prapancha or name and form is vacharamana, is merely hanging on the speech, is only has its origin only in the speech. The pot has its origin not in clay. The pot has its origin not in clay. It has origin in the speech. Because nothing is created from clay. The notion of pot is created, and that is only in the name pot, which is a concept in our own mind. Sat padartha swayam shuddha iti nirnayat. Thus Sat padartha, all the names and forms are Sat. Asti, Bhati, Priyam. Iti nirnayat tatpada lakshyartha vismarita. Tatpada vachyartha is Jagat and Ishvara. Tatpada lakshyartha is Parameshvara, the Jagat adhishthanam. Idanim tvam padartha muktva tam parishodhya tasya tat padartha abedam tattvamasi iti mahavakyopadeshane pratipadishyami iti pravartate. So what does this section do now? Section that we are beginning. What does it do? What's the tatparya, the purport of that? Idanim tvam padartha muktva. First of all, tvam padartha, meaning of tvam is to be stated. Tam parishodhya, vachyartha of tvam is jivatma. Parishodhya, in the true sense that what you call you or I is nothing but consciousness or Brahma. Tasya tat padartha abhedam tattvamasi mahavakyopadeshena pratipadeshyami. The Tvam or Jivatma is essentially same, identical to Brahma or Paramatma. So that is the knowledge, that is the releasing knowledge. That I am Brahma, I am limitless, that's what counts to us. That Brahmani Satyam, Jagat is Mithya is nice to know. But that I am Brahman, I am limitless, I am free from all limitations, free from all wants, all desires, wants, lack, free from all lack. Because I am the problem and I am the solution. I am the problem for myself because I see myself as a lacking, wanting, incomplete being. To discover that what I thought was incomplete or wanting or lacking is limitless. The knowledge that I am limitless leaves no sense of lack or want. And a sense of lack or want is the cause of sorrow. What is the cause of sorrow? Nothing else but that I am lacking, I am wanting, I am limited, I am inadequate. It is that perception of myself which is the cause of all unhappiness. So when the lack or want, inadequacy goes away in the wake of this knowledge, then there is no cause for any grief at all. Therefore, Mahavakya. So now Tadartham. What's the meaning of Tvam? And how to Parishodhanam, how to make it, free from all its upadhi. Tadartham jivasya sushuptam tasya brahmani cha layam vadati. To help us understand the nature of this Jivatma and how in essence Jivatma is Paramatma, the text now, Shruti now talks about the state of deep sleep where the Jivatma merges into Paramatma. Tasya brahmani layam cha vadate. That how Jivatma gets resolved in Brahman, like a pot getting resolved in clay, meaning thereby that pot is nothing but clay. Disham disham patitvayati anena jagrat swapna rupa avasthadvaya muktam. Will be told, disham disham patitva, how a bird which is with a string tied to a post, flies in different directions and comes back to that post. So also Jivatma flies to waking state, searching for fullness, dream state, searching for adequacy, and comes back to its own post where it is tied, which is Brahman in Sushupti. Disham disham patitvayati anena jagrat swapna rupa avasthadvaya muktam. Flying in different directions. And therefore, in Jagrat and Swapna is the directions in which he is flying. Swapiti sushuptam muktam. Swapiti, he sleeps. By that they not dream. Because swap dhatu can mean both. It can mean sleeping as well as dreaming. So Swapiti is a dream state or deep sleep state. Bhashyaka will say that it is deep sleep state. Swapiti sushuptam tena avasthatra vishisto jivaha tum padavachyartha suchitaha. Avasthatra vishishtaha, one who is characterized by the three states, waking, dream, deep sleep. So one who looks upon oneself as a waker, dreamer, sleeper, That is the immediate meaning of the word you, or the word I. So वाच्यार्थ है, सूचित है, तस्य सुषुप्ते ब्रह्मणि लयात् ब्रह्मणः स्वस्वरूपोक्त्या. So wherever the laya takes place, that is what one's swarupa is. A pot gets resolved into clay, so clay is the true nature of pot. Similarly, if Jivatma gets resolved in Brahman, then Brahman is the true nature of Jiva. So Sushupte Brahmani Layat Brahmana Swaswarupa Uktya Itar Avasthayoho Aupadikatva Suchanat. Other two avasthas, the waking and the dream, are aupadikam, are due to upadhi. Mind is upadhi and mind is awake. So we say I am awake. Mind is dreaming. I say I am dreaming. Therefore this waking and dream states are not the states of Atma. They are the states of the mind. So by saying that the true nature of Jiva is Brahman, because the Jiva gets resolved into Brahman in deep sleep state, thereby the Shruti is saying that the true nature of Jiva is Brahman. Then what about the waker? What about dreamer? They are Upadikam. Because Upadhi of the mind, the Jiva gets the designation of waker, of dreamer. Tumpadalakshyartha Shuddha Jiva bhi Suchita hai. By saying that the waking state belongs to Upadhi, not to Atma. Dream state belongs to Upadhi, not to Atma. Atma is free from all the three states. Puratraye kridati yasya jiva. The jiva kridati, sports in the three cities of waking, dream, deep sleep. Meaning that he is different from them. One who sports in different states has to be different from the states. Jivasya pratibimba rupatvat sushupte antahkana rupa upadhilayadeva cha swaswarupa prapti uktya shuddho jiva iti uktam bhavati. Jivasya pratibimba rupatvat. Again, Jiva is compared to a pratibimba or a reflection. As Bhashyakara said, he will say again, just as a person enters a mirror through the reflection, the sun enters a body of water through reflection. But the true nature of reflection is the image. So also true nature of Jiva is Brahman. Jivasya pratibimba rupatvat sushupte antahkarana upadhiladeva cha swaswarupa prapti uktva. That in the sushupti, because the upadhi of antahkarana is not there, that's how the jiva attains its true nature. Shuddho jiva iti uktam bhavati. So in the sushupti, the one that merges into Brahman, that is the true nature of Jiva. Tataha tasmai shvedaketave tattvamasi upadesha abhi purna bhavati. Jiva also is consciousness, Brahman also is Jagat, Ishvara also is consciousness, and the Jiva is identical to Ishvara. That way, the Upadesha, you are Brahman, Purna bhavati, becomes complete. So the interaction that the Tippanikara gave us for the section that follows. Now go to Abhinava Narayananandendra Saraswati Tika. Nanu Sarvasya, all go to Anandagiri Tika. Trutkarana Nirnaya Vishayam Avantara Prakaranam Parisamaptya. The Mukhya Prakaranam is, of course, that Sat is Upadana Karanam. Eka Vijnanena Sarva Vijnanam. In the process of that, Trivutkaranam, how the whole universe is a manifestation of the three colors or three elements. Ultimately, the element earth gets dissolved into element water gets dissolved into element fire, which in turn gets dissolved into Sat. So, Trivutkarana Nirnaya Vishayam Avantara Prakranam Pai Samaptya. So, that was Avantara Prakranam. Mukhya Prakranam is to show Eka Vijnanena Sarva Vijnanam. In that, this is very helpful. Therefore, this the internal Prakranam also is being told. Mahaprakranam Sadvishayam Sadeva Somya Idamagrasi. That's the Mahaprakranam, Mukhya Prakranam. Main topic. Sadvishayameva Anuvartayan. Again the Shruti picks up the thread. He started talking about Sat. In between, he talked about the Trivutkaranam, the threefold combination. That was the purpose. Purpose was to show how what is manifestation of Brahma. And now the Shruti connects the thread and now connects with, so again continues with Sat. Sadvishayameva Anuvartayan Manasole Sushupto Jivasya Sat Sampattim Vaktum. Sushupto Manasa Le. In Sushupti, when the mind completely merges. Jivasya Sat Sampattim Vaktum. How Jiva attains the state of Sat or Brahman. Manu Upadikatvam Uktam Anuvadati. All these states of waking, dream, deep sleep are the states of the mind. So, Atma gets a designation of waker, dreamer, deep sleeper only because of this Upadi of the mind, limiting adjunct. So, Manu Upadikatvam, that mind is Upadi, the limiting factor, as though Yasmin iti. That's how Bhashyakara Anuvadati reiterates the fact that mind is Upadhi, is a limiting adjunct. Or going to Abhinava Narayana Nandendra, Nanu Sarvasya Jadavargasya Brahmakaryattvena Brahmivatarekena Abhavat Tadjnanat Tanmatra Jnanepi. Nanu Sarvasya Jadavargasya Brahmat Karyatvena. The entire Jadavarga, entire inert creation is Brahma Karyam, the product of Brahman. Brahma Vyatirekena Abhavat Tat Ananyatvam Aramana Shabdadibhyah. Jagat is Tat Ananyatvam, meaning Jagat is Ananyam, non-separate from Brahma. Brahman, of course, is independent of Jagat, but Jagat is not independent of Brahman. Just as the actor is independent of beggar, but the beggar is not independent of actor. Actor is Satyam, beggar is Mithya. Jadavargasya Brahma Karyatvena Brahma Vyatirekena Abhavat. Therefore, Jagat, being the product of Brahma, is non-separate from Brahma. Tadjnanat Tanmatra Jnanepi. Therefore, by knowing Brahman, you as well know the whole prapancha, the whole creation. Tathapi, Jiva Vargasya, there are two Varga here. One is the Jada, other is the Chetana Varga. The Drishya is Jadam, insentient. Drashta is Chetana, sentient being. So far the Shruti has accounted for all insentient creation. But Lord Krishna calls apara prakriti. Bhumirapo nano vayu kham mano buddhireva cha ahankar itiyam me binna prakriti ashtadha. The eightfold prakriti. Apariyamita swanyam prakritim vidyame param. Here Arjuna understands that there is a para prakriti. This is a para. The eightfold prakriti is a para. There is a para prakriti also. Jiva bhutam mahabaho. So this jiva is a para prakriti. The reflected consciousness is the para prakriti. But it's prakriti nevertheless. So by what the Shruti has said so far, all the insentient creation has been accounted for. And therefore, all of that being the product of Brahma, by knowing Brahma, you as well know the entire insentient creation. Fine. Tathapi, Jiva Vargasya Brahma Karyatvena. But in the creation process, nowhere it was told that the conscious being or sentient being also is the product of Brahman. That was never said. They did not talk about the creation of Jivatma, talked about the creation of Namarupa. Jiva Vargasya Brahma Akaryatvena. Jiva is not the Karyam, the product of Brahman. So by knowing the material cause, you as well know the effect. Brahman is the material cause of the universe. So you know that. But Jiva, Brahman is not the material cause of Jiva. Therefore, Brahma Vyatirekat, the Jivatma appears to stand separate from Brahma. Tad Vijnanena Sarvijnanam Sadadvaitam cha na siddhyati. If the Jivatma stands apart from Brahman, then you cannot say that by knowing Brahman you know Jivatma because it's separate. The table is separate. The cloth also is separate. By knowing the table, you cannot know the cloth because they are independent entities. If Jivatma also is an independent entity, then by knowing Brahman, you do not know Jivatma. So by knowing Brahman, you do not know everything. You know the entire Jada Prapancha all right. But as far as the Chetana, Jivas are concerned, they are not the products of Brahman, therefore you do not know them. And Sat Advaitam Chana Siddhyati Sadeva Somya Idamagrasit Ekameva Dvitiyam. If the whole Jiva Varga stands apart from Brahman, enjoys an independent reality, then Sat is not non-dual because Jivatma is separate from Sat or Brahma. Nacha Sataheva Jiv Rupena Praveshana. But we were told Anena Jivena Atmana Anupravishya Nam Rupe Vyakarvani Etaha Tisro Devataha Anena Jivena Atmana Anupravishya. Say that I will enter these three devatas as their jiva and then bring to manifestation the names and forms. So therefore, the one who is there is jiva because Brahman alone is entered as jiva. It says Nacha Sataheva Jiv Rupena Praveshena Tasya Sat Abhedat Sarvijnanati Vachyam. We may say that Brahman alone is described as having entered, the Sat alone is entered as Jivatma. So one who obtains as Jivatma is Sat or Brahma. Therefore, even though Jiva is not a product of Brahman, it is same as Brahman. Therefore, by knowing Brahman, you know Jivatma because Jivatma does not stand apart from Brahman. And so, by knowing Sat or Brahma, you have known everything. The Jada Prapancha as well as Chetana Jiva Varga. Iti Navachyam. Don't say that. You cannot say that. Why? Upattibihi Vina Pratyakshadi Siddha Vedasya Jivasya upadeshamatreena abheda pratidi ayogaditi. Shruti says that Brahman has entered as Jivatma. But what is our experience? Our experience is that I am a limited being. So Pratyaksha, what is our direct experience? That Jivas are many and each one is limited and I am limited. Therefore, just on the basis of Shruti, you cannot prove or establish that Jiva is Brahman, because what the Shruti says appears to contradict our experience. Pratyakshadi siddha bhedasya, the bheda, the duality, the manyness of the Jiva is a matter of experience, and so how can Shruti dismiss what we are experiencing? Unless there is upapatti, unless there is reason that what we are feeling about ourselves is not right, that in reality I am Brahman, that I take myself as a limited being is not the reality about myself, it is a notion. So that must be, the buddhi has to understand that its perception about itself is not right. So perception doesn't mean it has to be real. Pratyaksha does not have to be real. Just because you see the snake does not mean it is there. It can very well be a rope snake only. Similarly, just because you experience a sense of limitation does not mean that it is reality about yourself. But that has to be established. If limitedness is not the reality about myself, then how come do I feel a sense of limitation? That has to be understood. That my perception of myself being limited is not right perception. So then the defect obtaining in that conclusion must be pointed out. That I have a conclusion about myself, a perception about myself, opinion about myself, judgment about myself. That judgment is not right. That has to be shown to me with reasoning. So, upavatti vina pratyakshadi siddha bhedasya jivasya upadesha matrena. That's the reason why in Upanishads the Upadesha is accompanied with reasoning. This is a teaching tradition. Upanishad does not simply declare the truth and leaves the rest to you, but it unfolds and therefore shows how what it says is true. It says you are Brahman and gives also the adequate reasoning to see this fact that I am Brahman, that my conclusion about myself is not right. That upapatti also must be given. Iti ashankya pravesha vakyartham abhedam upapattibihi sthirikartum. In fact, upapatti is already given. Reason is already given that Brahman is alone entered as Jiva. So pravesha vakyartham abhedam upapattibihi sthirikartum. So that Pravesha Vakya, that Sat has entered, is meant to show the non-duality between Sat and Jiva. Upapattibihi, so that is Upadesha. It is to be accompanied with Upapatti or reasoning. Sthirikartam, so Shravanam and Mananam. What is Mananam? Mananam is Sthirikaranam, making firm what you have learned through Shravanam, making that firm with Upapatti or reasoning. Uddalakoha Aruni Ityadi Brahmanam. Therefore, the next Brahmana, Uddalakoha Aruni, the purpose is to give you the Upapatti, the reasoning, to show that the notion of Jivatma is wrong. Even when you think that you are Jivatma, you are Paramatma. Just as the 10th man thinks that he is the 9th man. He thinks that the 10th man is lost, that I am not the 10th man. So by reasoning it has to be shown that you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's counted. Where is the 10th man? You are the 10th man. So that's the Upapatti also, meaning reasoning also is given. Not just that you are the 10th man, that may not be enough. You are the 10th man. Because I know that I am not the 10th man. How do you say? So see, there are 9. Then he is to be made to see that he has failed to take himself into account. When he sees that fact, then that Upadesha becomes firm. So the next Brahman begins with that in that purpose. Tatra adau swapnavakyasya vruktena granthena sangatim vaktum vrittam kirtayati. Bhashyakara does not right away start commenting upon that passage. Vrittam kirtayati. Bhashyakara, because the chapter has changed, prakranam. Therefore, Vrittam kirtayati, Bhashyakara reiterates what has gone by so far. Why? Swapnavakyasya vrittena granthena sangatim vaktum. As to how the following passage called Swapnavakya. So Swapnantam Vijanehi. That's Swapnavakya. Vakya or the passage dealing with Swapna or of sleep. So what connection this has with what has gone by? What has been discussed so far is Tatpada. All of a sudden the discussion of Tvam-pada is started. What's the connection? Tatradau swapnavakyasya vrittena granthena sangatim vyaktum vaktum. How this vakya of the passage is, what connection it has with what has gone by. Vrittam kirtayati. First Bhashyakara reiterates what has gone by. Yasmin manasiti. So Bhashya says, Yasmin manasi jivena atmana anupravishta paradevata adarshe iva purushaha pratibimbena jaladishu iva cha suryadaya pratibimbaihi. Yasmin manasi jivena atmana anupravishta paradevata. Paradevata is the devata Sat, the existence or Brahma. Yasmin manasi, the mind in which Brahman is entered. Jivena atmana as Jivatma. So mind in which Brahman is entered as Jivatma. What is the nature of entry? Adarsheva Purusha, just as a person enters a mirror through the reflection. Suryadasheva, Jaladasheva, Suryadaha, or in the body of water, how sun, moon, etc., they enter through the reflections. In that manner, the Paradevata, Sat, has entered the mind, which is the Upadhi. Here, again, the Narayanandendra says, Yadyapi tatra devata seva anupravesha uktaha. If you note, Bhashyakara says that Paradevata has entered the mind, but that's not what the Shruti said. Imaha tisro devata anena jivena. So actually, it is the entrance into devatas, not into the mind. So yadyapi tatra devatasya anupravesha uktaha. In her own words, Shruti has said that the Devata, namely Sat, has entered the three elements. Tathapi praveshakaryasya vyavaharasya sarvasyapi mana pravishta eva darshanat. Even then, it is not these three devatas or elements that are conducting all the vyavahara or transaction. Praveshakaryasya vyavaharasya. The purpose of talking about pravesha is to explain the vyavahara. Sarvasyapi manah pravishta eva darshanat. All the vyavahara is carried out by the mind actually. That's what we find. Therefore, devata shabdena tat karyam manopi gruhyate iti abhipretya. So when Sat or Brahman has entered the three elements, then it follows that it has also entered the subsequent stages. When you take a lump of gold and make a bar from that, then gold has entered the bar. Then the bar is now made into a wire. Then gold through the bar has also entered the wire. And the wire is turned into rings. Then gold has entered the rings. So by entering the bar, automatically whatever is subsequent creation from the bar, the gold has entered. Similarly, the Paradevata, the Sat or Brahma, has entered the three elements. Those three elements went through the process of the threefold combination. From those gross elements then, and then it's from the subtle state, the subtle body is created. From the gross state, gross body is created. So subtle body, gross body, all of these are the products of the three elements. Therefore, entry into three elements automatically implies the entry into the subtle body, the gross body, everything. Subtle body means mind. And therefore, tat karyam manopi gruhyate. Even though the Shruti says that Brahman has entered the three elements, it also means that Brahman has entered the mind, which is the product of the three elements. Iti abhipretya manasi pravishta iti uktam. Bhashyakara has taken the liberty to skip a few steps and straight says right away manasi pravishta. Because if you refer to the previous text, you don't find Brahman entering or Sat entering mind. But Sat has entered the three elements, and therefore in effect it has also entered the mind, which is the product of the three elements. Siddhanagiri upadehe swarupaktam sancharayati. So upadi is the mind. Uktam swarupam, the nature of the upadi mind was already stated. So again Bhashyakara restates that. Tanmanah iti. Tanmanah annamayam tejommayabhyam वाक् प्राणाभ्याम संगतम अधिगतम. Tanmanah, that mind. Annamayam is Somya Manah. Then the Apomaya Prana, Tejomaya Vak. So Tanmanah Annamayam Tej Abmayabhyam Vak Pranabhyam. So Tejomaya Vak, Apomaya Prana. Therefore the speech and the prana, which are respectively the products of elements fire and water. Sangatam, this mind is associated with the other two, the prana and the speech. This is what adhikatam, this is what we have learnt. Upadi upahite karyakartvam darshayati. So, what does the upadhi do to the upahita, to the one who is conditioned? Or the next tika says, Manasyeva visheshena praveshasya anuvade hetum vadan vartishyamanam darshayati. Why does Bhashyakara say that the Devata has entered the mind? It has entered all the three, it entered everything, but then Manasyeva visheshena praveshasya anuvade. Bhashyakara takes only that portion. Bhashyakara does not take the entry into everything, but takes that portion, that how Brahman has entered the mind. Why does Bhashyakara only say that Brahman has entered the mind? Hetum vadan vartishyamanam darshayati. What is to follow also shows yanmaya iti. Bhashyakara says yanmaya yatsthascha jivaha manadarsana shravanadi vyavaharaya kalpate tat uparamecha swam devata rupameva pratipadyate. The reason why the Bhashyakara specifically mentioned the entrance of Brahman in mind is this: Yanmayo yatsascha jivaha. Jivatma mana. So manomaya is a modification of mind or identified with the mind. Yatsascha, the one obtaining in the mind. This jiva, because of the remaining in the mind and identifying with the mind, the jiva or the consciousness is able to do the vyavahara. Consciousness itself cannot conduct any vyavahara. The vyavahara is all conducted by the mind. But yanmaya, because jiva is identified with the mind and jiva has entered the mind, therefore he is within the mind. So yatstascha. Therefore, it creates the notion that the I or jiva, the consciousness, is conducting all the vyavahara. Manana, darshana, shravanadi. Or shravana, manana, darshanadi should have been stated. First is shravanam, then mananam, then darshanam. See, what happens is Bhashyakara means darshanadi. Looks like darshanam does not take place in shravanam, mananam. So some of these vakyas can be interpreted, and that's how different schools of thoughts come. Whether the knowledge takes place in shravanam or takes place in nididhyasanam. So manana, shravana, darshana. Or if you just say darshana means seeing through the eyes, shravana means hearing through the ears, and manana is seeing through the mind, then it's okay. Vyavaharaya kalpate. That's how kalpate samartho bhavati. The jiva becomes capable of carrying out these functions of hearing, of thinking, of seeing, only because of the identification of the mind and because of he has entered the mind. Therefore, tat uparamecha. So as long as the mind is functioning, the jiva is able to perform the functions of seeing, hearing, thinking, speaking, etc. Tat uparamecha. And when the mind resolves as in a deep sleep state, swam devataruva pratipadyate, the upadhi is no more there, therefore jivatma attains its own true state. Not that jivatma is consciousness, but as long as the mind is there, so long there is habitual identification. As long as the mind is there, so long there is habitual identification. Therefore, when the mind is hearing, I say that I am hearing. The mind is seeing, I say I am seeing. Mind is thinking, I say I am thinking. But when the mind itself is not there, then that habitual identification also is not there. And the notion of I or ahankara, which which arose because of identification. The mind also is not there. Therefore, whatever was apparently keeping the jiva apart from Brahman, jiva is never apart from Brahman. But still, because of the identification with the mind, upadhi, there is a seeming duality between jiva and Brahman. That seeming duality also no more remains when the mind or the limiting adjunct is resolved. Swam devatarva pratipadyate. Therefore, the jivatma attains his true nature, which is devata or sat or brahma. That's what Annagiri said. Swam, no. Manaso bhave jagat swapna vyavahara siddhi. Only when the mind is there, then the waking, dreaming, all is vyavahara is possible. Iti uktva tat abhave. When the mind is not there, sushuptim avatarayati. There is a state of sushupti, or the deep sleep state. Tat uparamecha swam devatarume pratipadyate. And he continues, Atmani manovashadeva darshanadi vyavahara na swarasthena iti. The vyavahara of the Atma, that I am awake, I am dreaming, all this vyavahara is only manovashadeva, because of manas, mind only. Na swarasthena, Atma in its own nature does not have any vyavahara of waking, dreaming, all of this due to the mind. Idyatra Bruhadaranyaka Shrutim Pramanayati. For that, so Bhashyakara says that this is the theme of all Upanishads. Not only Chhandogya, elsewhere also this is said. Therefore, Bruhadaranyaka Shrutim Pramanayati. Present Bruhadaranyaka passage or statement as a pramanam to validate. The thing is, this is what this Upanishad says. Or this is what we understand from Upanishad. That understanding is right, because that's what the other Shrutis also say. Looking at the other stika, yat shabdasya tasyaseti tat shabden anvaya. Tasyasya will come in the third line. So yat and tat have to be connected. That's what the Tikakara says. Mananadi vyavaharasya manu upadikatve shrutim aha. How mananam, thinking, etc., all these vyavahara or all these transactions are possible only because of mind. Shrutim aha. For that the other Shruti stated. So Bhashyakara says, I am reading two tikas. One the Anandagiri, both the tikas are somewhat different, fortunately. Elsewhere what happened in Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, the one mala repeated what Anandagiri said and elaborated, of course. Here this Tikakara does not repeat what Anandagiri says. He has his own track. And so we get the two tracks here. Sometimes they may be similar, but otherwise there are two tracks here. Taduktam Bhashyakara says, Taduktam Shrutyantare Dhyayativa Lelayativa Sadehi Swapno Bhutva Imam Lokamatikkramati Sava Ayamatma Brahma Vijnanamayo Manomaya Ityadi Swapnena Shariram Ityadi Prananneva Prano Nama Bhavate Ityadi Cha Taduktam Shrutyantare Ityadi Uktam. All of this stay in the other Shrutis. So sometimes Bhashyakara in the Brahma Sutra Bhasha was Shrutyantare. But he is talking Brahma Sutra is not Shruti. Shrutyantare means what? The Shruti that is under discussion in another Shruti. Here of course all right, Shrutyantaram, this is Shruti. So Brihadaranyaka is Shrutyantaram, no question. So says Dhyayativa, Lelayativa, says in Narayananandra, Buddho Dhyantyam, Swayam Dhyayativa. In fact, it's Buddhi or the mind which is meditating, and he says, I am meditating. Lelayantyam, Cheshtamanayam, Swayam Cheshtate. And when the mind gets distracted or becomes restless, then I am restless. So mind is concentrated, so I am single pointed. Mind is moving, restless, I am restless. So how habitually the attributes of mind are superimposed upon the self because of identification. But dhyayati iva, as though he meditates, lelayati iva, as though he shakes. So buddho cheshtamanayam swam chestate iva iti. That when it is buddhi that is carrying out the vyavahara, because of the identification, jiva thinks that I am carrying out the vyavahara. The next vakya was sadhihi swapno bhutva imam lokam atikramati. Sadhihi, identifying the dhi or buddhi. Swapno bhutva, becoming sleeping. Imam lokam atikramati, it transcends this waking world. In identifying the mind, he sleeps and thereby transcends this waking world. Says the Tika, Swapna bhutva, swapna vimani bhutva, sadihi swapna bhutva. Being identified as the dhi of the mind, swapna bhutva, swapna vimani bhutva. The mind is sleeping, then he says, I am sleeping. Imam lokam, jagrad lokam, adhikramati. This Jivatma goes to another world. So waking is one world, sleeping is another world. Goes to another world. He crosses or transcends the waking world and goes to the sleep world. Then in the brackets there is something, that vakya comes later actually, so we'll read it later. After the brackets, manomaya iti, then sava ayamatma brahma vijnanamaya manomaya ityadi. Manomaya iti manupadim upakramya idam maya adomaya iti antena sarvavyavaharoktescha. All the Brihadaranyaka manomaya hai, vijnanamaya hai, identified with the buddhi, manomaya hai, identified with the mind, idam maya hai, identified with idam, adomaya hai, identified with that, idantena sarvavyavaharoktescha. All this vyavahara. Manupadika dhinatvam sarvavyavaharanam. That is, all the vyavaharas are all dependent upon the upadhi, namely the mind. So Bhashyakara quoted, Sava ayamatma brahma vijnanamaya manomaya iti. Swapnena shariram ityadi. So what does Jivatma do? What does he do? When he wants to go to sleep, he takes this body and makes it unconscious and creates another body for himself in the dream. So, sapnena sharyam ityadi prananneva pranana bhavati. When he breathes, then he becomes a breather. Vadanva, when he speaks, he becomes a speaker. That shows the identification with the function of prana, with the function of speech, etc. Going to Anandagiri, द्वितीय वाक्य सधि इत्येतत् उपयुज्यते. Sadhi, identified with the mind. Tritiya tu vijnanamayo manomayeti. The thing is, which part is to be taken from the quotation? Sadhi or vijnanamaya manomaya. Identified vijnan or buddhi or manah mind. Evam bhumikam kritva samanantara vakyam adatte. This is bhumika. What is the bhumika? Atma as though attains different states of waking, dreaming, or Atma as though carries out different transactions, such as speaking, hearing, seeing, thinking. All of this is due to the upadhi, the limiting adjunct, namely mind. So this is what Bhumika, Bhashyakara has done. Evam Bhumikam Kurtva Samanantara Vakyam Adatte. And now the Vakya and the discussion that Bhashyakara takes up, Tasyeti. So Bhashya says in the third line, Tasyasya Manasthasya Mana Akhyam Gatasya Mana Upashamadvarena Indriya Vishebhyah Nivrittasya Yasyam Parasyam Devatayam Svatma Bhutayam Yadavasthanam Tatputraya Achikyasuhu. Then comes the passage. Tasya asya manasthasya. Of this Jivatma who is in the mind, man akhyam gatasya. Not only Jiva is identified with the mind, or it is within the mind, it is the mind. So Upanishad uses the word manaha to describe Jivatma. Prana, so it will be told here, prana, what prana bandhanami somya manaha. And so this Jivatma is connected with prana or Brahman. So for Jivatma, in the subsequent passages, Shruti uses the word manaha. Why? Because the Jiva is identified with the mind, it has entered the mind, it is as though within the mind. Asya manasthasya, the one who is the mind. Mana akhya gatasya, one who has got the designation, namely mind, is called mind. Mana upashamadvarena. Therefore, when there is cessation of the mind, indriya vishebhyah nivrittasya. As long as there is functioning through the mind, so long there is functioning through indriya sense organs. So long there is association with the objects. So when now the mind is not there, as in deep sleep state, then or even in a dream, there is also the withdrawal from all the interaction with the sense objects and sense organs. Parasyam devatayam svatmabhutam yadavasthanam. Then when the mind gets resolved, this Jivatma gains an abidance in Paradevata Sat or Brahma, which is its true nature. This is what, so meaning that Brahman is the true nature of Jivatma. This is what Uddalaka wants to say to Shvetaketu. For that, Uddalaka also creates the Bhumika, and for that, Bhashyakara also creates the Bhumika. So, says the Narayananindra, Mana akhyam gatasyedi anena tanmano disham disham patitva idyatra manashabdena jiva abhidhyate darshayati Manakhyam gatasya, the jiva who is now come to be called mind. Therefore, disham disham paditva, it's the mind that goes to waking state, mind that goes to deep sleep state, mind that wanders to sense objects, seeking its gratification. But because of identification of mind, it is felt that the jiva or atma also is waking, awake, it is dreaming, it is chasing the sense objects, etc. So, manas shabdena jiva abhideti darshayati. Bhashyakara wants to say that by the word mind is meant jiva in the Shruti. Okay, so let us read the next passage. उद्दालको आरुणिः श्वेतकेतुं पुत्रमुवाच स्वप्नान्तं मे सौम्य विजानीहीति यत्रैतत्पुरुषस्वपिति स्वपिति नाम सता सौम्य तदा संपन्नो भवति स्वम अपीतो भवति तस्मादेनं स्वपिति इत्याचक्षते स्वम हि अपीतो भवति उद्दालको आरुणिः उद्दालक the son of Aruna Shvedaketum Putram Uvach, as a new chapter is started, So told Shvedaketu on some other occasion, I don't know, in the continuation or maybe next day or whatever, Uvacha Sapnantam me Somya Vijanihi iti. Hey Somya, you know now from me Swapnanta. What is Swapnanta? Bhashyakara will explain Swapnanta means deep sleep. So hey Somya, oh good looking one, you know from me now the deep sleep. Yatra etat purusha swapiti nama, where this person sleeps. Sata somya tada sampanna bhavati. He somya, oh good looking one, then sampanna bhavati. He attains sata. He becomes one with sat. He attains this nature of sat or Brahman. Swam apit now swapiti. So he sleeps. So that is explained now in its own style, Nirukta style. Swam apito bhavati iti swapiti. One attains one's own self is called swapiti. Tasmadenam swapiti iti achakshate, because he has attained his own state. Therefore, they say that swapiti, he is sleeping. Swam hi apito bhavati, because he has attained his own state. Let us complete that Vakya. Page 254. Bhashya. Tatputraya achikyasuhu uddalakoha kila arunihi shvedaketum putram uvacha uktavan. So how in the deep sleep state that Jivatma attains its true nature, this is what the teacher or father wants to communicate to the son. Achikyasu, desirous of explaining that. Uddalako, ha means kila arunihi, is a Vakya Alankara. Uddalaka, Aruni, son of Aruna, Shvedaketum, Putram Uvacha Uktavan. With that purpose, Uddalaka addressed his son, Shvedaketu. तत्पुत्राय इत्यत्र तस्याम देवतायाम तदवस्थान तत्शब्द तत्पुत्राय आचिख्यासुः. That Uddalaka is desirous of explaining that to his son. Explaining that means what? Tasyam devatayam tadavasthanam. How he gains an abidance in that devata. This is what the father wants to explain to the son. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Om पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ